Hi everyone, hope you're doing well and happy to see you in our channel. So based on the comments and requests received from you to give the quick tips on your December attempt for ACCA Financial Reporting exam, based on the requests I received from my Telegram channel and from our group, I'm recording this video and hope this video will help you along the way, along your preparation. And considering the very limited amount of time, I will try to give you the main tips, and I will try to give you the useful tips for you to pass your exams. Please press the like button and subscribe to our channel so that our channel will spread more useful information to everyone who are on their way to give their exams. So in order to pass the exam, of course, this quick 5 to 10 minutes video will not cover all of the syllabus and will not be a comprehensive video, but this is just quick tip. And and if it's not enough, if you need the specific comments, then please comment below or put your recommendation in our FR group channel, and I will try to cover that part in separate video as well. So in our today's video, I will divide it to two parts. And first part is the main areas and standards that we should look at and focus on to be able to pass the exam. So I always recommend our students, and I always give it as the main point, as the main cornerstone for being able to pass the exam, is to look at the date and to look at the requirement of the question before you are solving it. Okay. So always, before looking to the narrative of the question, please always look at the date. Identify what date you are asking for, and what date is provided in the narrative, and identify what is the requirement of the question. And when you are identifying these points, then you can go and read the narrative, because once you know the requirements, you will be able to watch and identify which part of the information is available for you and useful for you, because our exam is very easy if you are able to manage your time. Okay, this is the first requirement. And the second point is that there are specific standards that will definitely come up in your exam. Which are they? IS 16 PPE, IS 38 intangibles, IS 36 impairment, IFRS 15 revenue from contacts with customers, IFRS 16 leases, and IFRS 10 business combinations, which is the consolidation, as students name the standards. So what can come up in IS 16? You will be required to calculate the depreciation. This will cover the change in estimates of the calculation of the depreciation. You should be able to identify whether it's reducing balance or the straight line method. And most probably you will also be examined to be able to calculate the depreciation on complex assets. By saying the complex asset, I mean the assets that are consist of different parts and have the different values. You should be able to identify what are the major overhauls and how they should be capitalized and depreciated, and how the decommissioning provision should be capitalized on the asset. So these are the main areas. In IS 16, you will be able to identify the cost that needs to be capitalized, and what is the calculation of the amortization expense. So always be aware of that. The cost of the intangible. You should always be aware that the designation of the stage by the company is not enough for IFRS purposes to recognize the intangible asset. What I mean, for example, in the question you are given the comment that on the 1st January, the company has started the research stage. On 1st April, it switched to the development stage. So it does not mean that from the 1st April, you should capitalize all the expenditures on the asset you should capitalize all the expenses on the asset. Okay. The main criteria for us is the pirate criteria. Okay, so always be aware of this. And when you are calculating depreciation, amortization on the intangibles, always be aware that in that case, not the date of the meeting the criteria of the pirate is enough for us, but we should calculate the amortization charge starting from the commercial production of the asset, commercial production of the intangible. Okay, so whenever we are being able to receive the benefit, economic benefit from our intangibles, from our research and development, from that date, we will calculate the amortization expense. And most probably you will be given the T balance, T account. And within that account, you will be given different headings. For example, the prototype expenses, design, I don't know, research, and many different things. So be confident. So be aware and be, how to say, very attentive to that questions, to that requirements, and look at your books. I suggest you BPP. It's much more informative than the Kaplan. So look at your standard of IS 38 from the BPP book and identify which kind of expenses are capitalized and which kind of expenses are considered as the revenue expenditure and should be written off to a statement of profit or loss as they arise. Okay. Regarding the impairment, the main aspect is to be able to allocate the impairment on CGU elements. While saying the CGU elements, you should be aware that first we should allocate on explicit assets, value of which has gone down, and we are aware of it. For example, your total CGU value has dropped down by 1,000, and you are aware that within that CGU, one item has suffered of 100 downfall, then you should allocate 900 of the impairment to remaining of the CGU elements. This is also applicable for the assets, value of which have not changed. So in that case, you should allocate the 900 impairment on the assets, on the remaining assets within the CGU, rather than the asset of which value has not changed throughout the period. Okay. While coming to revenue, the main thing is calculating the contract assets, and be aware that the previous method of the calculation of the contract asset, where you were taking the contract asset cost to date, where you calculate the profit to date and you deducted the invoice to date, this is not applicable anymore. So in order to calculate the revenue, the contract asset or contract liability, you should look at what is the total revenue to date to the period that you are asked to find the contract asset, and deduct from that amount, deduct from that cumulative amount, the total invoiced amount, and the result will be your contract asset. And be aware that if you are given 2000, for example, 2021 and 2022 figures for the revenue, and the 2021 is your first year, then in order to calculate the contract asset, you should sum up year first and year two, because when we are calculating the contract asset, we are interested in the cumulative amount of the revenue, because we want to identify the item that should be recognized on the face of the financial statement as at the year end. So all the cumulative effects have to be considered within our account. Okay. While coming to IFRS 16 leases, you should be aware of how to calculate the finance cost. And in order to be able to calculate the finance cost correctly, you should be able to identify how the payments, the nature of the payments, lease payments, because in arrears and in advance has their own calculation method. And please always remember that you should split the lease liability into current and non-current portions. Okay, these are the main things. And also note that the interest expense is calculated on present value of future lease payments. So if at the start of the date you had the liability, and in order to start the use of the lease, in order to start the lease of the asset, you have already paid that amount, then this portion of the amount will not be included in the calculation of the finance cost, because as here we see, the interest expense is calculated on the present value of future lease payments. So the present value of all lease payments that will arise in the future should be discounted to the current period, and you should unwind it, and as a result of the unwinding you will find the interest expense. So wherever you see the total lease liability, wherever you see the initial lease liability, you should use your judgment and to identify whether all the amounts that are included within this liability amount are to be provided in the future. So if your total lease liability is 100, and at the start of the lease you have already paid for example $10, then this means that in future periods you will have to pay 90. So your finance cost will be calculated on 90. Okay, and while coming to IFRS 10 business combinations, you will definitely be examined for this question, for this standard within the section A or section B, and this will eventually come up in the section C, whether it's the preparation of the financial statement or the interpretation of the financial statements. Okay, so be aware of this standard and be sure that you have covered at least 4 years past papers, because as you know, this is the standard. There is not much difference in each of the questions that arise, that come up in the real exam. So be aware that you are familiar with the type of the questions that come up, and I'm sure that if you in the last week, if you are able to at least cover 4 years, 5 years past papers, you will definitely not be challenged on your real exam. And when coming to the time management, referring to my 3 years experience of being a tutor in the financial reporting, and based on the comments and considerations received from my students, this method will definitely help you to pass the exam. So what is this? Do not spend more than 2 minutes on each of section A and section B questions, because if you do not follow this rule, I assure you that you will not be able to attempt for whole 100 marks. And when you start your exam, please only look at and focus on the questions that you are able to solve. If you see the question and you know that you have never come up with this kind of question, do not spend any time on it, because wasting the time on the question that you don't know, you will waste your precious time that could be spent on the areas that you know and score good marks. So on the first round, if you don't know the answer to that question, follow my rule. Do not spend skip that question. Go to the next question. Go and solve the question that you are familiar with. And when you reach to the section C, be aware that you do not spend more than 40 minutes on each of the cases, whether they are interpretation of the financial statement or the preparation of the financial statement, whether you have finalized to answer the requirements, whether you have additional comments to put on, it doesn't matter. If it's the 40 minutes, then finish your first task. And if you follow my rule, if you follow the steps, then at the end of attempting all the questions, you will have enough time to recheck your answers, to add additional comments to the ratio, to check your answers in the section C, and also just try to guess the answers on the questions that you don't know. So the tip is, do not spend more than 2 minutes on each of the question. Do not spend time on the question that you don't know. If you are not sure of your answer, please flag it and return after you have completed all your responses. And I hope that by following my tips, following my recommend, you will be able to pass your exam. Please give your comments about our video. Whether you need any another information, please share your thoughts in our channel, and I wish you many good luck, and I'm sure that you will be able to pass your financial reporting exam very soon.